So the Norse are an interesting team. They are very, very good at punching people early. They are best. Their peak is as soon as you create them. Team value 1,000. They they are so strong versus other team value 1,000 teams. It's just not funny. They all have block except for one of the players, which is a werewolf, an Ulfwerner. They are pretty versatile. There are a lot of different builds you can go. They have quite a fun big guy, and a lot of their players have frenzy, which makes it difficult to position against them, and it can often lead in. That's both a strength and a weakness. Frenzy can lead you into trouble as much as it can lead your opponent into trouble.
But like you've been saying with other groups, with friends, you can get them, you can get your opponents off the table completely, and
Yeah,
you get some easy injuries that way.
exactly, exactly. The frenzy, I love it as a skill, and I can't say enough about it. The weaknesses of the Norse are they actually don't have a very high strength across their team. They only have two higher than average strength players, and they are completely bashy, and it can make life very difficult.
So yeah,
They
you have I seem to see you have a low strength team that focuses on bashing it.
Yeah, yeah. You do have a couple of Dauntless players, and you do have a couple of ways around that, and everyone has blocks, so one die and two die against blocks are actually a lot safer for the Norse than they are for everyone else, but they're still dangerous. Very few of their players have strength access, so Mighty Blow, Guard is hard to get. One of the reasons the Norse don't scale very well as they level up is because Guard is such an intrinsic skill to Blood Bowl, and they have a hard time getting it.
So saying that in a 10-game tournament, how hard do you think these guys are
I'd say
to
Norse
play?
Norse don't have a very good success rate in tournaments. They're too squishy. All of their players are pretty much armor 7. They die too quickly, and they don't. Unlike a lot of players who can die really quickly,
So to make it work, what are you looking for though?
to make Norse work, you have to block and block and block and block and block. The block.
And that's
That's pretty
that's the
much.
strategy.
Yeah. So they have a big guy, the Yeti. This guy has quite a fun. He's not very good, honestly, but I like him. I think the Yeti adds a nice element to the Norse that they're otherwise missing. He's one of their few above average strength pieces. He has frenzy. He has this disturbing presence. That makes it really hard for people to catch or pass around him. So he's actually really useful against like high elves or wood elves or something like that, because you just stick him in the middle of them all and they struggle to catch and pass. He also has claws, which means that high armor teams, this guy's really good at taking out Chaos Warriors, Black Orcs, other big guys, anyone with a higher than average armor.
So in the past, with other, with except maybe the Kroxagor, some of the bigger guys have been passed on. Would you pass on the?
I think it's
What is this?
I think it's reasonable to not take a Yeti. I like the Yeti. I think you need the extra strength. I've played tournaments with Norse where I've both taken the Yeti and not taken him. I like him. A lot of people don't.
And you get access to strength as well, so
Yep.
you can pick up block
Exactly.
easily, like claws.
This is one of the few guys on the team who can get guard. And you really need, because you've got low strength overall, guard is priceless. The next guy is an Ulfwerner. This guy is the one player other than the Yeti on the team who doesn't have block. He's quite quick, he's strength 4, he's not very agile, and he's got armor 8, so he's tougher than the average Norse. He also has frenzy. He gets general and strength access as well, so this is where you take an Ulfwerner because of the strength, you take an Ulfwerner because he gets strength access. So again, he can get guard.
So he's, would you say he's like an automatic include then? You want to take
I
him
would,
one, or?
I would always take one Ulfwerner to start with. You can get 2. If you're going to take 2, you don't buy the Yeti.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
basically that. If you want 2 Ulfwerners, which is reasonable, you don't take the Yeti. You always take 2 Berserkers. These guys are your star players. These guys are the best. These guys are the ones you need to level up. They have jump up, they have frenzy, and they have block. They're not very fast, but they're sort of average speed. Strength 3, agility 3, armor 7. These guys are really good. These are your blitzers, basically. Then you have the
And
runner.
even with so how do these compare to war dancers though?
Oh, they don't compare to war dancers.
No. Okay.
They're extremely discount war dancers. They don't have dodge, they don't have agility 4, they don't have movement 8. They're much slower, they're much less able to score. They don't have leap, they're much easier to knock down. You'd
Okay.
still foul them.
You still follow them? They're,
Yep.
they're still so they're still a key pillar, much the same way that war dancers are to wood elves. They're
Yeah.
just not nearly as strong. They require more aid from their other players. So.
Exactly. Then these aren't a one-man army in the same way that war dancers are. This guy is the runner. I always like to take one runner because he has Dauntless. That can really help even out the strength disparity. He's also the fastest player, which makes him a really good person to pick up the ball. Because you can put him back in the backfield, and if the kick goes really deep, he can probably reach it to pick it up in the first turn. He doesn't have sure hands. That would probably be my first level up on a runner, would be sure hands. But he can also get agility, so he might get dodge as well, depending on how you feel. The thrower. I would never take a Norse thrower. Ever. I don't see a reason for it. He can reroll the pass, but you don't have a catcher. He's not very fast. He's just a lineman with pass, basically. I'm not sure in what scenario you'd take that. Maybe. I wouldn't. And then your basic Norse lineman. Same stat line as the thrower, he just doesn't have pass. You might take a thrower actually if you're trying to get the leader skill to get a free reroll. That could be worth it. That would be the only situation in which I would take thrower. So this would be the team if I was playing in a tournament I would take for a Norse team. 1 Ulfwerner, 1 Yeti to give us some strength, 1 runner. Again, he's the fast player on the team. He has Dauntless, so he can help even out the strength disparity as well. Take the 2 Berserkers, because you might as well. You need to get those guys ticking on their SPP, and you fill the rest up with linemen. The playstyle for Norse is very fighty. In order to get the best out of them, you need to be fighting your opponent, but you must never get involved in a long pitched battle, basically. If you're playing against Orcs, or Chaos, or Undead, or Necro, or any of the Kemrians, especially Dwarves, Chaos Dwarves, any of the Bashi teams, they are all a lot tougher than you. And Dwarves, Chaos Dwarves have similar amounts of block. I'd say, honestly, Dwarves and Chaos Dwarves are the 2 worst matchups, and probably Orcs are the 2 worst matchups you could get as Norse early on, because you're just going to get killed by them. Norse are very hard to play without a player advantage, and very hard to play with a player disadvantage.
Are there any players in particular? Are there any players in particular that you want to target though? Like, are you looking to go after the Ulfwerners, or maybe the runners or Berserkers, or like what are you targeting? What are you doing to take these guys apart?
Honestly, you just need to bog them down, make sure that they get them down on the floor. Get them into a pitched battle if you've got higher armor than them. If you're playing a human team or an elf team against Norse, get away from them. Make sure they can only block you once per turn. Because you're not going to win that fight because they all have block. Eventually that will win out. It's kind of tricky to Norse are one of the harder teams to sort of plan for. You know, you can have a game plan when you go in, but at the end of the day, you're going to be very situational. Because it really does depend on how the armor rolls go. If you start losing players, you have to play a lot more defensively, and if you start knocking players out on the enemy team, you can really, really pressure them. Norse are an interesting team. They don't perform very well in tournaments because they don't scale very well, and their peak, their most powerful moment is right now. This is the most powerful a Norse team will ever really look compared to their opponents. Any other questions on Norse, Emu?
No, that's good. They seem to be like a very bashy team early on, maybe suffer later on since they can't, or rather they don't have much access to block. But yeah, no.
Well, they pretty much they don't need the block because they will start.
Sorry,
with
not block, but
guard.
other strength skills.
Yeah, it's guard and mighty blow that they really lack, and that can really like for a bashy team to lack guard and mighty blow is really dodgy.
What I was thinking of saying is that since they have block early on, so they are maybe contenders early on against
for sure.
Non-block teams. But yeah, when other teams start getting block, or if you're going against another team with block, it could get a bit more hairy.
That's the other thing. Their advantage quickly dwindles away. Awesome. All right.
Thanks.
Next one.